telling me I was about to meet a tall, dark stranger. However, my next guest here, as you can see, looks nothing like an exotic gypsy. He's Robin Lown, who believes his form of palmistry is much more scientific. So
it is.
You're nothing like these strange ladies in the tent.
No. Never was. Not in a past life.
But scientific, though, you can actually say that by looking at someone's palm, and the marks on it, obviously,
yes,
can actually tell you something about them, about their future or about them.
Well, it's more like a psychological profile. It actually grew up many years ago. I mean, it's over 2,000 years old, or even beyond that. And it was used as a psychological tool to understand people's spiritual and psychological development. So there were psychologists around even then.
So it was before we all got, well, most people got sort of disenamoured with it. It used to be considered quite common. Everyone would accept it. It was almost part of medicine and science.
Oh, yes. Even the Greeks knew about it. There is a tale that Aristotle himself actually was well versed in it, but by chance he actually found a book on an altar of Hermes. And that's how the story goes. Well, he found it. Actually, on the gory side, it was probably made of human skin, they believe. So, but
are yours still made like that?
No, they're not. I don't think books are these days.
We're going to look at a couple in a moment. But first of all, how does it work then?
How does it work? Well, it's more like a genetic barcode. I know we've been talking about Sainsbury's and supermarkets and Tesco's and all the rest of it. Well, you have a genetic barcode. Now, geneticists know this already. We're in the realms of the 21st century genetic science. So it's not unusual to talk in that term. So part of your genetics is predetermined. In other words, at cellular level, you've inherited a certain amount of chromosomes and gifts and talents from previous generations, and lo and behold, you have some of those probably coming out in your lifestyle in this lifetime. But remember, we live in a different time.
Right. Okay, what I'd like to do is sort of look at practicalities, because we sent you 2 palm prints.
You did
so
indeed.
You can do it from that.
You did indeed.
If we do the first one first, which makes sense, which is the female.
Right, the female hand, yes.
The mystery female first, to actually look at it. So we've got there, you've got left and right hands and a thumbprint.
That's right.
So what do you begin looking at to look at? You can tell the character of this person, you say, from looking at this?
Yes, character, psychological profile. The first thing I know about this person is that they're left-handed. Now, that wasn't a guess. I was actually told that they were left-handed. So I started with that. And science has already proved that left-handers are very good at explaining visually. They use the right side of their brain. They're good at remembering images. They're very good at holistic thinking, working with pictures. They're fluid and intuitional and playful. Right. So there's a psychological profile, but this person's a lot more than that.
Right, so what can you see on there? I mean, is it the old, that's the lifeline, you're going to have to tell how many children you're going to have and all that kind of thing that we often hear about?
It's not. It's more than that. But straight away, I've got to go back to some basics. The basic rule of thumb, that wasn't meant an intended pun, sorry, is that it's a very square hand. And this person, if they've got square hands, is a very down-to-earth sort of person. They're very balanced. If you've got, you can see the spread of the fingers are very balanced too, the square palm. So this person's an organizer, probably on a grand scale. They've got an executive type ability. In other words, on the practical level, the fingertips also show some rather telling fingerprints. They're tented arches. The police would know what I'm talking about. But they are particularly down-to-earth characteristics. So this person is a very good sort of management ability and behind-the-scenes type manager. They were to get people motivated and doing things. So would you like to know more?
Yeah, well, let's bring her in first, because our mystery female is actually Kathy Taylor here, who got her hands dirty in the cause of palmistry science.
Practical down to earth, absolutely.
Yes, well, I had to be fairly practical because to get the palm printed, I had to sort of push the paper in from the other side.
Most people have to actually, but that also shows something else. If your hand is fairly hollow, it shows that you're quite an emotional person. And from the outside, Kathy, you would actually display the less emotional, slightly detached characteristics, but inside you're actually very different. So there is a paradox already working in your hands.
Are you down to earth, organised? I think that's a fair summation, aren't you?
There might be quite a few people laughing in the wings about the organising. No, I try to be organised.
Yes.
I am quite organised. I think I have to be organised because I basically try and cram too much into my life.
I actually was going to say that. Would you like to know your weaknesses before you spill them all?
Please do.
Your weakness is actually taking on too much. Everyone's problems are mine. I'm a very responsible person, quite a worrier. It could be my fault, but I'm going to say no, it isn't. The fact is they're probably not doing enough for you.
Right, yes, well, maybe that's true.
Is that fair enough, though?
Yeah, I think I was going to say the shape of my hand, though. I have got a square hand, but then I'm sort of quite a square body. I'm a square
It does go
person.
with the frame anyway,
Yeah.
quite often. But like I say, the characteristics are there beyond that.
Yes, I mean, it's quite accurate, I would say, generally, yes.
So what I mean, looking at this, I don't know how to say this. There's an awful lot of lines there.
Yes, well,
Does that show you anything?
Well, I was going to wait until we actually compare it with the next person,
Ah,
because
right.
the other person has fewer lines. If you have a lot of lines in your hand, you are inclined to be a very busy person with lots of choices, lots of things to do, a high element of activity. Lines mean activity.
Right.
If there's lots of lines, there's lots of choices, lots of activity.
Yeah.
Too
So
much floor cleaning.
Always
as well.
busy, always busy. That's the word, you see.
I mean, I have a background of sport as well, so I am not so much at the moment, but I
Yes.
have been very active in my
Work
life.
before emotions, I wrote down on my notes here.
Did you get sport in there at all?
Well, a practical hand is always down to earth and will use the physical. As we noticed, very energetic mopping.
Yes, she was, wasn't she? Shall we have a look at the other one as well? Then we can
want to
compare the two.
look at the other one?
Because we're on
Right.
to a male person here.
Right, this
Do you
one.
need a left or right hand for a left or right-handed person?
Well,
Do
on
you
the
read
left,
hands
yes, on
differently?
a left-handed person, the left hand is more developed anyway, but it's more right brain because the hands actually correspond to the sides of the hemispheres of the brain. So scientific analysis actually says that left-handed people are more right-brained, but the brain is used all over.
Okay, we got these
Okay.
two up again here. This is
Right.
a male. The same thing, both hands, two thumbprints down in the corner.
Right. Well, I'm going to
different
go.
looking.
Yeah, they are totally different. Obviously, there's a male and female difference here, but if you look at them carefully, you'll find that the male hand is probably less lined than the female. So this person would be a little bit more laid back, or will apparently be so.
Go on, I'll say it. Since women are desperate to say it. It's because the man doesn't do as much. Probably,
Right.
isn't
Well,
it?
I've written quite a few notes here. In fact, I went to town on this guy because often I don't get a lot of guys' hands to really go to town on. You'd be surprised. It's mainly women,
Yes.
but it has got more men over the period of time, about a third, whereas it used to be less than that. So this person's tall-looking frame, tall-looking, boyish looks, a bit of a team player, worker, strong-minded opinions, strong principles, intellectual yet basic, seemingly very controlled but deeply emotional. It's got a wacky kind of almost sarcastic humour, has to perform, needs that buzz, is obviously a smoker or probably blocks his emotion with smoking.
Why, obviously, I have to say,
Well,
I mean, all these
there's
things, how
bits
can
in
you
here.
tell?
There's bits in the hand which I can actually explain. But I actually put this person down for jobs, bit of an 007 in a sense. A performer of inquiry I put down here. Long little finger, good talker, imagination, creative depth, interest in other people's emotions and dark things. Journalistic, investigative, salesman type, humorous, satirist, stand-up performer, lives on his wits often most of the time, bit of a double agent.
Right.
So, Robin, did
There
you
you go.
guess this was me before we did this? Because this is.
Well, it is so much you, really, and, do you smoke?
Yeah.
And do you sometimes find you have to have that cigarette?
Sometimes. I'm going to be giving up, though.
Right.
Terrible, awful habit.
Do you know, at your best, you've got this wacky side to you. At your worst, sometimes you're rather serious-minded. I put vain here. I don't know why. I
No,
put
no, that was obviously a different one.
I mean, I don't know you that well, Tony, but on superficially, it seems very like the bit of you that I know. I mean, how you
Well, having been a
obviously know
journalist for
yourself quite
20
well.
years,
Oh, well, there
And-
you are.
But other some of the more emotional side of things, is that right?
it's
Has
very
he got you?
controlled, I would say. I don't lose my temper very often.
Very
That's what you-
controlled.
and you actually said that,
Absolutely.
didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, but emotions do bubble under the surface.
Can I ask you why? You notice on mine, when you looked at the two of them, I found it extremely difficult to get my palms to print.
Yes,
I had
a
to
lot of
actually
people
put
do.
all my weight
Yes.
on just to
Yes.
make them go down. Well,
Yeah.
and you said something about having cupped palms.
Yeah, if people have a hollow palm, quite often it was the old ancients, the very ancients, used to say, as much water as you could contain in your hand showed the depth of the emotion.
Hey,
Now
I can get loads in
Now
there.
he can hold a lot of water there, and that was just the ancient way of putting it. But it does mean in symbol that the more hollow the palm, the more people keep emotion in. The flatter the palm, often the more outward going they are, and the more splayed the fingers, the more dynamic and physical, which is often connected with sport.
We're unfortunately running out of time, but one thing I want to know from this, do you tell, because palmists tend to tell the future, do you do that with this?
Well, put it this way, they're indications, the same as genetics would tell you that the cells have certain firing times. Put you in a certain environment, you may fire up a certain way. So this is interesting with children because I've taught children for many years, been involved with education for many years. But if you put children in a certain environment and they have those particular talents or skills, they do fire up, they become successful. So in a sense, this is a great tool for changing careers, helping your child's education.
And looking
certainly
at possibilities.
And looking at possibilities. But yes, there is an an indication. There are trends.
One final thing, you didn't find any weaknesses with me, did you?
Oh, plenty, but probably not enough to talk about now.
That's good. Robin, thank you for that. That's fascinating.
Okay. Thank you.
Extraordinary. You've got to hand it to them. It's